que você ama em uma universidade? Aprender na prática com grandes empresas? Conviver com pessoas que mudam o mundo? Ou estudar em uma estrutura com padrão internacional? Na Anhembi Morumbi, tudo isso acontece. Venha descobrir por que milhares de alunos amam estudar aqui. Acesse anhembi.br e faça sua matrícula. Amo é Anhembi Morumbi. Aqui tudo acontece.
Greetings, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I am delighted to have you. And also, welcome those of you in Oklahoma City. I am glad to have you with me as we continue to expand across the nation. The phone number, if you want to be on the program, 877-973-7425. You can text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777 and subscribe to the show notes, get the podcast, the live stream, all that. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, we're going around the country, we're traveling, and we want to be able to listen to you. Are the radio stations? Yes, if you go to ericerickson.com, there's a list. But if you text Eric to 33777, there's the live stream, and when you listen to the live stream, you get me noon to 3 Eastern time live on the live stream wherever you are in the country. So if you're traveling, I prefer you to listen to a local radio station. Honestly, I realize I'm the last guy in radio who wants to be in radio and not a podcast, but I do want to be on radio and want you to listen on radio. But if you're aware that you can't get a radio station that has me, you can always listen to the live stream or the podcast. Now, I want to talk about something. I have a bone to pick with some of you. So, how do I do this? I will occasionally puff myself up, usually tongue in cheek, because so when I was a kid, my mother and my sisters, all of them said I was too snotty and too arrogant and too braggadocious, I guess you could say. And I am very sensitive to it. There are people who will routinely tell me on social media that, you just think you know everything. Then you just think you're better than us. And what it is these are people who actually aren't smart. And they don't like to be told they're wrong. And my job is to tell you the truth. And to quote my friend Andrew Breitbart, and yes, he was a friend. I still have his number in my phone book. On my the number of friends of mine who are dead, whose numbers I can't bring myself to delete. He's one of them. Andrew used to say, truth is truth. It's not mean, it's the truth. And the truth is there are a lot of people out there who believe many things that simply are not so. And I get blowback from people who, Rush Limbaugh would never make me feel like an idiot. Actually, he would. I know. But if people are really sensitive to it, you little whippersnapper, you don't know what you think you know. It's remarkable the number of people. I've been in politics this long. I know people, and I keep good relations. One of the criticisms of me, one of the attacks. There's another radio show host who will go unnamed because it's not worth it. But one of the criticisms of me of why you should not put me on the radio is because, do you know that Eric Erickson, he has friends in the Democratic Party like James Carville and Donna Brazile. How can you trust he's a real conservative? My response is, I'm a Christian. I love my neighbor. I'm sorry that guy's not. But I have friends across the aisle, and I try not to burn bridges with them. There are many people who you probably hate their guts, and I'm friends with them. And I may be critical of them on radio. Like in the last hour, I was critical of Joe Scarborough, who I've known Joe since he was a member of Congress. I disagree with him a lot these days. But I'm not going to burn bridges with someone because I see the world different from them. And, oh my gosh, the level of criticism. But the one criticism, the biggest criticism, the chief of all of them, the thing that I get from anonymous Twitter persons, you just think you're better than us and you think you know more than us. Well, XBillyBob5 on Twitter says this. Prove him wrong. All of that is to say, there are many people on the right who listen to ex-Billy Bob Bumpkin 25339875 on Twitter, who assures them Barack Obama is pulling the strings of the Biden administration. Barack Obama is really in charge. It's Barack Obama who's there. I would just like to spend a few moments with you and tell you this is not true. I know some of you believe Barack Obama is in charge, and I don't blame you because you've heard other voices say that. Just this past weekend on Fox and Friends weekend, they were talking about behind the scenes, it's Eric Holder and Valerie Jarrett and Barack Obama pulling the strings. It's simply not true. And if they were connected and talked to Democrats who you can learn things from, even if you disagree with them, you would learn that Team Biden hates Team Obama. And Team Obama feels the same damn way. They don't like each other at all. They're furious with David Axelrod publicly criticizing Joe Biden, and they take David Axelrod's criticisms as Barack Obama's criticisms, even though they're not. The Biden team, you have to understand this, please. I'm just begging you. I don't care who you believe is pulling the strings with Joe Biden, but if you believe it's Barack Obama and you believe it's Barack Obama's team, you're not a thinking person who knows anything about the situation. Yet I don't mean that to be insulting. I don't mean it to be arrogant. I don't mean it to be belittling. I just happen to know it's true that they are not pulling the strings because the Biden camp and the Obama camp despise each other. Jill Biden and Michelle Obama do not like each other. The only people who like each other are Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and even Barack Obama is the man who said never underestimate Joe's ability to F things up. There are limits to their friendship. This has a lot to do with 2016. The Biden team that is with him now was with him then in many cases. And they really believe Barack Obama is to blame for Donald Trump. Because they really believe had Barack Obama come out for Joe Biden in 2016, not only would he have been the nominee for the Democrats, he would have beaten Donald Trump as Barack Obama's third term. That's their belief. You and I can disagree with them. But you have to understand, that's the Biden team's belief. The Biden team does not like Barack Obama. They don't like Valerie Jarrett. They don't like Eric Holder. They don't like David Axelrod. They don't like the people from Barack Obama's world. And so if you're out there and you're telling people that Barack Obama is clearly the one pulling the strings, you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't know what you're talking about. And I hate to abuse you. I hate to insult you. I hate to belittle you. I hate to make you feel dumb, but you are if you're saying this. Because it's not true. And that goes for the talking heads on Fox and Newsmax and OAN and on social media. It's simply not true. The Obama team and Biden team don't like each other. Now, who is pulling the strings? God only knows. I'm convinced that Barack Obama, there I go. Now look, no. I'm convinced at the end of the day, Joe Biden is the one who's actually making the final call on stuff because look at the chaos, look at the conflicting policies, look at the insanity of the policies. Only a dementia-addled fool like Joe Biden could actually come up with incoherent, conflicting chaos policies like this. But what's actually happening behind the scenes, I suspect, is this. Let me make you smarter. Old school senators, which Joe Biden is one, would rely on their chief of staff. The chief of staff would whittle all of the decisions down to a handful of decisions. And then from that handful of decisions, the president makes his pick. And he leads the president in that decision. He leads the president in that direction. That's the job of a Senate chief of staff. The Senate chief of staff takes the meetings, vets the solutions, the policy proposals, narrows them down to the 2 or 3 he thinks that the boss is going to like, and then goes to the boss and says, here are your options. 1, 2, or 3, pick. That's the way Joe Biden operated his Senate office. That's the way Joe Biden operated his vice presidential office. And I have it on very good authority, that's the way he's always operated the presidency. Now you throw into the mix Jill Biden and Hunter Biden as well. And Anita Dunn. And still Ron Klain behind the scenes, his former chief of staff. I think that this is what's happening here. It's not Barack Obama, never has been Barack Obama. It's been a very small circle of trusted Biden advisors who have whittled all the decisions down to the very last and then let Biden pick. And the result of this is you had Ron Klain, and Ron Klain, say what you will about Ron Klain, but Ron Klain was the very steady hand for Joe Biden. In fact, Ron Klain had been the chief of staff to Joe Biden from 2009 to 2011. He'd worked in the Clinton administration. He worked in the Obama administration. He worked on the campaign, and then he left. Ron Klain knew Joe Biden's preferences very well because they'd worked together. Jeff Zients worked the National Economic Council, worked in the OMB for Obama, went out into the private sector, and he came back after serving in the private sector. They do not have the tenure that Ron Klain had. And the pattern continues to play out where he's probably whittling things down for Joe Biden. And the chaos comes from Ron Klain and Joe Biden had a longer, deeper working relationship. I just think, now let's take Barack Obama out of the picture here. It's not him. I think what we're seeing is this bubble of people, this very close-knit group of advisors around Joe Biden, paring everything down into what their preferences are, and then going to Joe Biden and dragging his finger, like the people who claim to be speaking for the people who can't speak, and they're going to touch the keyboard, just guiding, you guide my hand, and it's going to land wherever. That's kind of what's going on here. At the end of the day, it is Joe Biden's hand, though, placing his hand on the option, however he was led to get there. And now what's coming out from all these stories from people inside the White House is that they themselves have been so blocked from engaging with the president, none of them had any idea that the situation was as bad as it is. Well, of course they didn't. They haven't been able to see and interact with the president. It turns out that senior people at the White House themselves haven't been able to see the president. And now we're getting this remarkable cavalcade of leaks from senior White House officials saying the president is not fit to run for office. The problem here is this. If Joe Biden is not fit to run again, why is he fit to continue as president of the United States? And they don't want to answer that. And that's one reason they're trying to avoid the conversation of getting him not to run again. Howdy. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. So I don't know Christian McCaffrey. He is the running back for the San Francisco 49ers. He had been, wasn't he in North Carolina or something? Yeah, he was with the Carolina Panthers for a while. And then he went to wound up going to San Francisco. And this weekend, or this past weekend, I guess it actually was, he got married to Olivia Culpo. She was Miss Universe in 2012. She went to Brevard College in North Carolina. I don't know these people, but I've got a friend of mine, Jack, who he and Christian McCaffrey have been friends for years. Jack is a Big Green Egg chef and does events around the country at Four Seasons hotels, and just a wonderful, wonderful human being, just a dear, dear guy. Who I randomly get I randomly get these steaks that show up at the house. And Jack is always sending me steaks and all sorts of stuff. Jack is a fantastic guy. And Jack and Christian McCaffrey have known each other for a while, and Jack was at their wedding in Rhode Island, where he got to hang out with Shane Gillis, and I showed my son the picture of Jack and Shane Gillis, and well, I can't really say on the radio, I shouldn't say what my son said, but basically he said, Dad, you're like the dumb kid who all the other kids feel sorry for, and your friends are so much cooler than you. Because Jack Arnold got to hang out with Shane Gillis. My son loves comedy. I won't let him watch the real vulgar Shane Gillis stuff, but he loves Shane Gillis's stand-up. By the way, John Crist, he's become a real big fan of John Crist and has watched all of his specials on YouTube as well. He just really loves comedy. He's got a wicked sense of humor in any event. So Olivia Culpo was pictured, her wedding picture. It was gorgeous. She is a beautiful, beautiful woman. A very elegant, very modest but elegant wedding dress. And like 10 people on her Instagram took after her for not having a sexy wedding dress. Do you know what's become a news story? This is the dumbest thing about the American press corps these days. This genuinely is the dumbest thing. This is a beautiful woman in an elegant, gorgeous dress on her wedding day. And the members of the press corps, of the gossip press, decided to do a story that some say her dress was too plain and not sexy enough. Her husband is deeply religious, as is she. She didn't want to have an audacious, outlandish wedding dress. And instead of like thinking she's a beautiful woman in a beautiful dress, the press decided to run the story that people are saying, random Twitter trolls are saying, which tells you every bad thing you need to know about the American press, and we probably don't hate them enough. Now, I got to tell you about Americans for Prosperity because, they've been covering the border crisis, unlike the American Press Corps, which outside of Fox News and News Nation has done very little to cover it. Americans for Prosperity Foundation has actually been taking Americans to the border to see the situation. It's not just a humanitarian toll, it's an ecological toll, an environmental toll of this mass sea of people crossing the border. And then Americans for Prosperity has set up a website, secureborder.secureamerica.com, so that you can find out the common sense solutions that can be deployed very easily to secure the border. It's not actually a difficult thing to do. We just have to deploy the right policies, and Americans for Prosperity wants to remind you of those policies at secureborder.secureamerica.com. And if you go to secureborder.secureamerica.com, you can find the means by which to yourself become an advocate for those policies with your member of Congress. So go today to secureborder.secureamerica.com, brought to you by my friends at Americans for Prosperity. Greetings, conversationalists, friends across America. I hope you're doing well. Here in the last 30 minutes before I rush back to record more of my book, I did make it to I think I'm into chapter 2. So the process for doing this, just why can't you do it in a radio studio? Because you go into a very soundproof room where you can't even have your phone on vibrate because the microphone is so sensitive it can pick it up. And so it's got to be very, very quiet. So I can't rustle pages. And so there's a teleprompter through the window. And I, like Joe Biden, can read the teleprompter. And if I mess up a word, I have to go back. They have somebody listening to me the whole time. And they're talking in my ear saying, go back, repeat this word or repeat this sentence or read it a different way. It is actually a labor-intensive process, actually. I've done this before, and this one is very much the same way. So there's an engineer and a listener on the other side of the glass. There's a teleprompter that the audio engineer person, he's scrolling, he's keeping time with my text, while the listener is listening to me read and reading the transcript along with me. And so I can't rustle pages. I can't scroll. You'd hear that's me tapping on the microphone here, but you would, the audio is so sensitive. So it's you can't just do it in a radio studio. You got to have somebody listening with you, correcting you, making you go back, making you pace differently, speak differently, things like that. It's a convoluted process, but every audiobook does it. Any audiobook you've ever gone, it goes through the same process. In fact, I'm recording. There was another author or a voice person doing the audiobook for a very famous author's book while I'm there. And then there's just little old me. So in any event, I'll get back to it here in a little while. But before I do, I want to talk to you about Project 2025. One of the many reasons that you should listen to this program is that I am often ahead of the news. In fact, one of the biggest complaints I get from people is, why haven't you talked about such and such story? And well, actually, I talked about that story, and you weren't here to listen to me when I did. I'm just ahead of the curve. That's not to pat myself on the back. It's just I pay attention to the news. I'm a news junkie. I don't get talking points from the RNC. And, there are some radio companies out there that actually do like prepackaged show prep for their hosts. And so all the hosts can get the same package and they can go through and pick and choose the stories they want to set up the story. I do my own research. Even Charlie and Philip don't do the show prep. They'll give stories to me in a Slack group that we're in because they know my blind spots. Like I don't often talk about sports stories, and Philip is very into business stories and stuff like that. But the main stuff is the main stuff, and that's my job. This is the Eric Erickson Show. It's not the Eric and Friends Show, so I got to do my own show prep. And when I was in Louisiana, at the beginning of June, no less. In fact, I can give you a fairly precise timeline on this by looking at my calendar, because I was in June visiting my parents and doing my show from that shack in the woods where I was expecting a man in a hockey mask to kill me. And so it was the week of June 10th. And I said to you guys, because a listener tipped me off, and then I myself heard it. I was listening to a local radio station coming out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it was a morning show, and it catered to a black audience, and it didn't matter. They were talking about a lot of Baton Rouge stuff, and they weren't really doing heavy politics and Democratic politics and stuff like that, as you very often will get on a black news program in the mornings that caters towards a black audience. It's very Democrat-oriented and stuff like that. Well, this guy was talking about problems in Baton Rouge, things like that, but then he got on a riff about Project 2025. This is a local black male radio show host with an audience that is predominantly black males, telling them they need to go to the Project 2025 website. They can see it for themselves. This is dangerous stuff. This is autocratic, blah, 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 blah. What was so funny is I had gotten a text message from a listener saying he was listening to a local black radio station and it was happening there. And then, you know what? I remembered a month or so before that, or a little bit before that, I was very dismissive of it in Macon, Georgia, where I live. Local black radio show host was talking about Project 2025. So you got in Macon, Georgia, you've got Gastonia, North Carolina, you got Baton Rouge, Louisiana, St. Francisville, Louisiana area. Anecdote is not data, but when you have in the same profile radio stations that cater in the mornings to black men, led by black male radio show hosts in local markets, not syndicated markets, but local markets, and they're all talking about Project 2025. There is clear coordination going on. And I said at the time, a month ago, Republicans, Heritage Foundation, others involved, you need to be aware of this. You've got a problem. They're turning this into an attack on Donald Trump, and they're trying to vilify Project 2025. I told you a month ago, you had a heads up. And now, to distract from Joe Biden's cognitive decline, Democrats across America are screaming about Project 2025. Now, side note here. If you previously listened to me, I was not intending to be belittling, but I've already gotten hate mail about Barack Obama's not in charge of the White House. And I know Fox News tells you that, Newsmax tells you that. It's simply not true. And if you believe it, you probably need to listen to other people because they're not telling you the truth. And it's not very thoughtful either. Now, what's remarkable about that is that I can tell you guys that. Some of you will get offended. Most of you will appreciate I'm giving you the truth. But so many people on the left they really do believe the truth is on their side. And when they hear people on their side on MSNBC and elsewhere vilifying Project 2025, characterizing it in certain ways, they really believe they're being told the truth. And they're really tying it to Donald Trump. So here's Project 2025. It is a jobs board. That is Project 2025. Started by the Heritage Foundation, the Center for American Renewal, and other outside conservative groups all got together and they said, here's the problem. If Donald Trump wins in 2024, he's not going to be fully staffed until 2026, and he'll only have 2 years after that to really accomplish everything. So why don't we start a jobs board now? We'll vet everybody now. People can send their resumes now. We'll vet them, make sure that they're going to be loyal, make sure they're not going to be leakers, make sure that they are sufficiently ideological compatible with the Trump agenda. And they'll be quick to hire. We won't have this waiting line of people after November ready to come in. We'll already have them. They'll already be stacked. We'll already know where to place them. We'll be good to go. Speed up the process. It's a brilliant idea. Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation deserves a lot of credit for spearheading this and bringing a lot of groups to the table so that they could coordinate together to do this. Now, I don't agree with all the groups involved. Some of them I've got differences with, like American Compass, which is a very left-wing group funded by left-wing donors pretending to be right-wing, pretending that the free market, or pretending that the right hates the free market. It's some people are drinking its Kool-Aid. American Compass is a bad idea funded by left-wing activists. And you need to understand, Orrin Cass and American Compass is funded by major left-wing donors. They got a seat at the table for Project 2025. That does concern me. But most of the groups, legit conservative groups, not progressives pretending to be conservative. The problem is this. Project 2025 has gone beyond that now with a number of outside groups pushing policy proposals. Donald Trump has Agenda 47. Donald Trump's Agenda 47 is, if he gets back in, he'll now be the 47th president, and he's got his own agenda. It's separate from Project 2025. There is some overlap because it's conservatives and they tend to agree on some of the same things. But Project 2025 is much more extensive. It's not vetted by the Trump administration. It's not tied to the Trump administration. And while I think it has some great ideas, not all of it is, and not all of it's going to be implemented. But the left has decided they can find the provocative aspects of it. And let's be honest here. Some of these guys have gotten really too provocative for their own good. And they've participated in planning out this Project 2025 agenda. Like, I got to say, I love Kevin. Y'all, I love Kevin Roberts. And Kevin, if you're listening, this isn't insulting, but phrasing Second American Revolution and it'll be peaceful if the left allows it to be probably wasn't a great choice of words, knowing how they're trying to grab hold of anything and make it sound like we're all a bunch of insurrectionists and very insurrection-y and stuff. I know the point that you were making, and I don't disagree with the point. I mean, it's the left that's going to be violent here. I mean, I've already said and gotten attacked by the right for saying that if Donald Trump gets elected, the left's going to burn down the cities of America. It's a fact. I wasn't saying it as somebody misinterpreted as, oh, is this why you're saying we shouldn't vote for Donald Trump? I never said that. I'm just saying it's a fact. The left is going to burn down America if Donald Trump gets elected. We just need to stock up on ammo and be prepared for it. And it's the same thing with Kevin's statement that the right is trying to advance a conservative constitutional counter-revolution to what the left has done. The left has advanced constantly. You can put a pride flag in a classroom, but God forbid you put the Ten Commandments, stuff like that. And so Project 2025 is a response to the left-wing agenda and has some great ideas. But the left is tying it to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is not involved with it. And a month ago, I said this was going to happen. I said, here's the next attack. And that's part of the problem with some of the rhetoric coming out of the people tied to Project 2025 right now is that it's been obvious this is where they were going to go, and some of the people involved, the left wants to make radioactive and tie it all to Donald Trump, who's got his own agenda, Agenda 47. This is, by the way, one of the reasons Project 2025 is one of the reasons the Republicans are scuttling their platform. They're not going to do a detailed platform. There's no need to do a detailed platform. You got all this competing stuff on the right. You got Agenda 47. You got Project 2025. There's no reason for a Republican National Committee agenda that's just going to be weaponized by the left and mischaracterized by the left. Why bother with it? No one ever follows the RNC and DNC agendas. They're a waste of time, frankly. But all that being said, as long as Joe Biden remains the candidate for the Democrats, the Republicans could very easily say, this isn't true. It's not Donald Trump's. There goes Joe Biden's dementia again. In fact, that's a great attack to use overall with everything the Democrats throw at us. It's Joe Biden's dementia acting up again. This isn't true, but it's Joe Biden's dementia acting up. Project 25 is not Donald Trump's agenda. It's, in fact, Donald Trump is now distancing himself from it. And people are like, well, this person worked for Donald Trump, but he'll go back into the White House, so it must be Donald Trump's. No. If that's the case, then I guess the Biden administration must be tied to the dude who is dressing up in dresses and stealing people's luggage, and stealing luggage must be part of the Biden administration agenda because that guy was in the administration in the energy department at the time. So I guess the agenda of the Biden administration is to steal Louis Vuitton luggage and pilfer women's dresses because that guy was a Biden appointee at the time. If we want to play that game, I assume we don't. But they need something to talk about to avoid talking about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and they've chosen Project 2025. And had you been listening to me for the last month, I'd have told you this attack was coming because it started firing up on local radio stations catering towards black men at the time that polling showed a big shift in black men towards Donald Trump. And this was their way of trying to pull them back. And I don't think that's going to work. And I'll tell you, I'm firmly convinced Kamala Harris will continue to push black men towards Donald Trump. Now, I got to tell you about Hillsdale College. Hillsdale is still giving copies of the Declaration of Independence, and they would love to send you a free copy of the Declaration of Independence. All you have to do is go to ericforhillsdale.com, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com. You go to ericforhillsdale.com, put in your information. Hillsdale will send you a free copy of the Declaration of Independence for you or someone you love. They've also got a great video there about Thomas Jefferson, the founding of the country, the writing of the Declaration of Independence. You can learn so much from Hillsdale College. They've got some great courses as well that you can sign up for and take completely free from Hillsdale College. They want to benefit and magnify your mind with their brilliance. They are such a great group of people. It's such a great college. My buddy Raz has actually raised his money for him now, and he's a graduate there. He's a sharp guy. Don't tell him I said that, but sharp guy. Every graduate from Hillsdale I know has been great, and you can get some of that knowledge from Hillsdale College and a free copy of the Declaration of Independence. All you have to do is go to Eric, E-R-I-C-K, ericforhillsdale.com today. Put your information in. They'll send you the Declaration of Independence. All right. Can we talk about Alan Lichtman, please? Because, boy, he's having a moment. If you don't know, Alan Lichtman is the historian who created the Keys to the White House model. He was with a Soviet seismologist, Vladimir Kelesbarak, in 1981. And essentially, they used 13 true or false criteria to predict the presidential candidate of the incumbent party, whether or not he'll win or lose the next election. And he claims, and it actually did, predict the correct presidential races through 2012. But here's the thing. People like to cite things like this, the people in journalism. If I predict to you tomorrow that the god Helios will carry the sun across the sky on a chariot, and the sun's so bright you won't be able to see the chariot, but that's what's happening. And the sun moves across the sky tomorrow. Am I right? Because the sun moved across the sky tomorrow, but I said it was because of the sun god Helios flying across the sky. Am I right? Am I? Because that's kind of the whole Alan Lichtman thing is he's predicting, but he's predicting on some pretty subjective criteria. And he's gotten it right, but also it's kind of obvious in 1984 that Ronald Reagan was going to win, and it was kind of obvious in 1990 or 1988 that George H.W. Bush was going to win. It was kind of obvious in 92 and 96 that Clinton would win, and yeah, it was actually kind of obvious in 2000 that Gore might eke out a win in a very close election. He got the popular vote, yes, for sure, but also Lichtman was also a consultant to Al Gore. And of course, it was obvious by the end of 2004, it was obvious that George W. Bush was going to win that election. These aren't like obvious in retrospect. They were obvious at the time The Democrats in 2004, I know, I was in a newsroom. I was at an MSNBC newsroom, and they knew George W. Bush was going to win before the night was over. In the same way that in 2008, it was obvious that Barack Obama was going to win. And notice in 2016, things go wonky for everyone. But trotting out Alan Lichtman all the time. Now he's saying, oh, getting rid of Joe Biden, it's not going to help the Democrats. How do you know? How do you actually know that? It actually seems that it will help the Democrats, given what's happened to the public right now. Hard to say that Joe Biden's the one with charisma when he's got dementia and he's running against Donald Trump. It just this sort of stuff bugs me because it's a cheap way to tell a story by a lazy media. Again, it's Veep. It's not House of Cards. It's not The West Wing. It's Veep. You got a guy who comes in and says the sun's going to come up tomorrow. The sun comes up tomorrow. Oh my gosh, he's a genius. We must put this guy on the payroll. He predicted the sun would come up in the exact spot where it rose. He predicted it. He must be a genius. No, not really. Not really. I don't know if you guys know this or not. You might not know it. But it's going to get dark overnight. It's going to get dark. It's not going to get as dark in northern states. Those of you listening in Kalispell, Montana, Grand Forks, North Dakota, even Springfield, Illinois, it's not going to get as dark for you as early as it is for the rest of us. Do you know why? It's because the nighttime fairy is blocking out the sun. That's it. Now, is that real? No, of course not. But that's kind of like this whole Alan Lichtman stuff. It just that's the way the media, he trots him out for this sort of stuff. And no, let's leave Alan Lichtman alone and stop trying to do this. But the media can't help themselves because they just can't help themselves. Talk to you all tomorrow.